Morning. Hey guys. Actually, I just had this waking thought. Um, see, I was looking at Woolworths the other day, and I noticed that the ATM, not the ATM, sorry, the checkout tellers are now all automated, and there's still a few that are, actually staffed. And a friend of mine is sort of precipice we're coming up to this change in our society where basically the cogs in the machine are going to be actual cogs. They're going to be actual robots and things like this. The amount of technology that exists today to automate things is amazing. And it reminds me of a debate that happened when we first had ATMs, which was it going to wipe out human service? And the answer is no, it won't. But all unnecessary human service will be removed. So there won't be this huge group of people, this huge workforce anymore. So I suspect the things that they talk about, things like G20, will be largely how they're going to moderate and regulate that as it comes in. They won't try and resist it because they know better, but they're going to make it as smooth a transition as possible and still give people a purpose. It's interesting because in the UK right now, 4% of the workforce have been fired because of automation, because of robots. I don't know what the statistics are in Australia, but we're heading that way as well. McDonald's has already got an automated McDonald's in the US, so it's all robots. So really, that's where our economy is heading, and people look at this as a bad thing, but I don't. I think that what this means to us really is something where we go back to our original sort of drives, which was we do things from a unique, art-worthy perspective. Now, that's not to say everything's, to be drawn or whatever. But it's like there's a difference between being a mechanic because you have to, and a mechanic because you love cars and you love making things, and that's where we're headed. We're headed towards a group of people who are working because they love it and whatever they want. See, now, there's always going to be exceptions to rules. Certain industries can't be removed from the human factor, but it's something that's coming. And there's actually already documentaries about it, like there's one called We'll Work for Free. There are a couple books about it, but we are heading that way. And interestingly enough, there's the number one business leader, the number one business guru. He's a guy by the name of Seth Godin. And Seth Godin actually has written, a staggering amount of books. I mean, the guy is a workhorse, but he talks about tribes and the idea of giving something specifically unique to them, and how there's right now ongoing is something called a race at the bottom, where essentially because of market forces, everyone's being forced to work for cheaper and act like a cog. And there are very few, but there are a few who actually lead the tribes, the groups of people follow them, and those people who are basically irreplaceable, they end up, another book of his, Linchpin as well as another one, anyway, Purple Cow, they end up making all the money because they're unique. They give something unique to their audience, to their group, and so they're on a race to the top. And if you're a company, what he's suggesting is that where do you go once you're at the bottom? Say you've got the cheapest stuff, producing the cheapest crap, right? There's no more room for movement. Okay, so he's saying skip that whole paradigm and start moving to the top by offering unique products that are artistically unique, something which has a level of creativity that makes it irreplaceable, and by doing that, you end up in a position where you can charge more for a higher premium for a high quality product and not actually have to race to the bottom selling cheaper and cheaper crap. I sort of liken that idea to the old school Ed Hardy. Like when I first came to looking at Ed Hardy, the way that I thought about it or looked at it, I was like, this is artwork, right? I mean, it was the first time I'd ever seen anything so detailed on a jumper or on a shirt, it was actually artwork, which got turned into the mainstream thing, which is fine. It happened. I mean, let it happen. But you've got to ask yourself, it's like, what was the appeal of Ed Hardy when he first came out? And most of these fashion designers, well, I mean, they have to have social connections to get into those cliques in the first place, sure, but in actual fact, the appeal is the fact that these people are artists and people are drawn to art. Okay, they're drawn to something unique, It reminds me also of something I heard about a tribe. There was this tribe that actually was a study on a culture, not a tribe itself, but they were looking at how different tribes, different cultures split up their time, like how they do things. And what they found was that there was certain tribes that the majority of their time they'd spend basically collecting rare feathers, right, and making big rare feather hats, I guess, I don't know. But the point is that they spend 20% of their time working, which meant, getting berries and food and crap, and hunting animals, cooking and feeding the tribe, and clothing, I guess. And the rest of it they just spent doing artsy stuff. And I think that force, because it's so innate, because this is a tribe, they don't really have a lot of social custom going. Like, they got some, but it's not refined. It's not due to marketing influences. It's just what happened, right? And the nature of these people was very peaceful. But the point being, that mentality is exactly what I think we're going to have more of. That's where we're headed. We're headed to a place where it's going to be centralized around music and art, because the demand for human workers itself is going to be so low, and people will work on what they love, but the demand itself is going to be so low, because even law, I was reading in actually it was an article, but it was about an American law firm, and me being all knowing about law firms, the American law firm was one of the last ones to adopt a certain piece of technology, which basically scans through drafts, right? And it scans through them, reads them, and figures out the patterns that don't match, that are like incorrect, sends it back to the law firm to get a human to correct it. And the point being, this thing can go through 100,000 documents in a day, and it's got basically no margin for error. Like, it just works, right? So that piece of software, once they've figured, because right now they still need a human, maybe, but that piece of software can basically replace what used to be the entire law society, right? See, that's already there. It's just waiting. Now, the people who make it, they're going to make slow treads, and once they can replace everybody, they probably won't pronounce it to everyone, but the point being, law is complex and difficult, and you've got a machine that can already do it. Okay? So, in that way, I mean, and that's law is a human element, okay? So, it's not something that in itself is usually mathematically predictable, but if the math is abstract enough, there is possibility for it, and these people have found it, whoever made the software. So again, is what the majority of people do in terms of the thinking they do on their day-to-day job, is that on the equivalent of writing law and contracts and drafting? Really? No, it's not. So again, if it's not, then the majority of industries can already be replaced, because we certainly have the technology to replace human movement. I mean, we don't have it's not easy to get walking, okay, like the typical walking the human does, but all the movements, all the processing we do for work, yeah, we can do that. And so we've got the mind down, we've got the movement down. So that's the way that industry and business is going, which is quite mind-blowing. And I mean, since there's already been a 4% change in the UK market, 4% is actually quite a margin. Like 1 more percent, then you're at 5. Then 20, 25s or 100. I think, yeah. But so we're a 20th of the way to the full employment. And thing is, with the acceleration growth curve, that's not gonna take as long, and so we're at this point where we're going to be moving into something very, very new, and it should be interesting. It should be interesting to see. Anyway, cheers, guys.